Thanks so much for joining us today on More Than Good Food, the podcast, where our goal is to have honest conversations about what it means to live a healthy life. I'm your host, Brooke Gordon, and I'm delighted to have you here with me. We're kicking off season 2, and today we're talking about hydration. But before we get into that, it is my absolute joy and pleasure to introduce you to my sister, my friend, my fellow podcaster, a woman who is so busy, I'll start by saying, because she owns 2 businesses. She co-owns a business with her spouse. She's also a parenting coach. And on top of all of that, she homeschools 3 very active boys who are also my wonderful nephews. So Meaghan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here too. I suppose I should probably also say Meaghan Jackson from Joyful Mud Puddles.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, this is a topic that you and I are really excited to talk about. And we talked about sort of the honesty that you're going to find with the 2 of us having a chat. And again, it's because we know each other extremely well. And in full disclosure, we actually recorded this episode a week ago and we were super excited about it. And I went to start editing the video only to discover that we had recorded the outtakes, not the one that we had wanted. So here we are, we're back again, seeing you for the first time, but back again together. So, a little bit of the behind the scenes to know that we're super excited. And so one of the things that we want to get into, and Meaghan, I want to start with this very first question of, how do you know when the boys and yourself are dehydrated?
Oh, that's a great question, because it took a while to figure it out. For one of my sons, it's very obvious. He gets migraines and feels really sick. Like he'll wake up and get dizzy and have to lie on the couch, and he gets a migraine. So he's a bit more very obvious, but clearly he's not drinking enough that he gets to that stage. For the other ones, they get hangry and agitated and more aggressive and annoyed with each other. And then I ask them, what's going on? They're like, I'm so thirsty, I can't cope. And they get to this I can't cope state, and they don't, I don't know if they realize they're too busy in play, whatever it is, they don't drink enough. I get headaches. I also get like really dry lips, and just my body is drying and crusting up. And I can't concentrate, I can't focus, and I get brain fog. I think you and I were talking once about like the words just won't come. And I thought I had like a medical condition. I was all worried about myself, and it turns out I could just be thirsty. So that's sort of some of our signs.
I mean, obviously we're related, and so some of our signs are going to be similar, I think, but they also speak to what's normal in the population when you're dehydrated. And even mild dehydration, I think, really goes unnoticed, because so often we confuse the sensation of thirst with feeling hungry. Yeah. It's this almost agitation in the mouth, and you kind of want to chew, or you want, you sort of think that you're hungry, and you have all these signs. You may have a dry mouth, but you also might start salivating, and you're thinking, oh, I'm just hungry, I need a snack. You're probably craving something very salty, like chips or some kind of savory dish that's going to feel that sensation of salt. And I find that really interesting, because with the biggest one for me, there's 2. My tongue feels a little bit too thick. It feels like I'm having difficulty with my word formation, but also, as you said, my word finding. Like I can't think of the word that I want to say. And that's usually a sign for me that I do need some more water. And one of the things that I have, I mean, I'll just say it. I've got a medical condition where I oftentimes will sweat through my hands and my feet, and I'll say it's really, really annoying, but whatever, that's the way that my body's figured out how to regulate its body temperature. And so because of that, I actually need a little bit more water than most people. So Health Canada recommends, I'm going to say 2 liters a day for an adult. So that's 8 cups of water. This, my regular one, I've got a full mason jar, 1 liter mason jar, and I drink 2 of these for sure. But I actually find I feel better with 10 to 12 cups of water. So I actually have 3 of these a day. And you talked about how the boys get caught up in their play. Do you have an idea of how much water they could be or should be drinking? Do you think about these things as well?
It's probably not enough. I just gonna be honest, right off the bat, I know we aren't drinking enough. Now, we in our family drink water rather than like juices and other stuff. I mean, they're in the house, but our go-to is water. But it's really not enough, because once you hit the fact that you're thirsty, then you're not, obviously not hydrated. I feel like we should be not reaching that I'm desperately thirsty point in the day. And it depends on what we're doing. We're really out and about a lot. I mean, we used to actually go out, but I still try to get them outside a lot more. But I don't think they're drinking like a full water bottle at a time, like at a day. So we could be doing a whole lot better.
And I'd say it's not necessarily better, but when you think about that hydration and that water piece, what are some of the ways? I mean, I'll tell you, I fill up every night. I fill up all 3 of my mason jars, and I put them in the fridge. And then that way, it is literally a grab and go of cool water. Now, actually don't like cold water. I don't like the sensation of cold water in my mouth, but I do like a little bit cooler than room temperature. So that's why I chill my water, but then I'll leave it out with me and then sip on it through the day. So I use one of those like silicone straws, but not always. But I tend to sometimes find I don't quite get it right. Next thing you know, it's like water all down the front. So I use a straw because I'm on camera a lot, and so it's just cleaner. So that's one of my motivations. But what have you found for you has been one of the ways that you do get water in front of the boys? Because especially if they're so active in their play, which I know is a huge part of their day-to-day and learning.
They each own several water bottles. And that's huge, because then we can just grab a water bottle, throw it in a backpack, go on a hike, or hey, you've got your next activity. When we used to go to the Y, they each had multiple water bottles because they're losing them all the time. And we went with lots of reusable straws just to make it convenient and easy. We personally can't drink our water at our house. We are on a well. And so we have a big water cooler. It's like you joke about conversations around the water cooler. We have one in our kitchen. But it's right behind the table. Like there's no excuse. It's right there. The only modification we did, for a hint for people with young children, is we deactivated the hot setting. So ours is, we just took the thing right off, so that way no one was going to get hurt. And so they have cold water. And then sometimes we will fill up and chill, and we make sure that there's a supply of ice cubes, because that makes it more fun for them as well.
Oh, that's a great idea. I like that. And so adding ice, I heard a couple safety things. Not if you have a water cooler at home, making sure that the heat is deactivated if you've got little ones. Using ice cubes, because that's kind of fun, because not only does it change temperature, but there's also a sensory piece to the sucking and the chewing of an ice cube. And it's that's so interesting for little ones as well.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun for them. And we also taught them from a young age to get their own. So they knew where the cups were. They knew how to do this. So then they could just take care of themselves, and it wasn't always on me to have to remember everything, because that's exhausting anyways. And then for myself, I just have cups of water everywhere. We also leave the cups out. When you're like loading the dishwasher, we always have a cup out on the table, and everyone knows which one's their cup. So then it's not like an extra step, anything to make it easy and convenient.
Oh, it's a really great tip. And it's funny as you say that. So I showed you my water bottle. I also have this For those of you listening, I've got this beautiful water bottle with my name on it. It's so lovely. And then I have one other one as well that's a quick squeeze bottle, hands-free squeeze bottle that I use for my bicycle. And so you're right, having like an assortment of water bottles can be so helpful, because it's just, it's a nice, easy way to get it into the container, to take it with me on a walk, take it with me on a ride, and just have that water easily accessible.
Yeah, and we also try not to use like water bottle, like store-bought water in those water bottles, because it's not really great for the environment. We do have a supply of them for my husband because we're trying to encourage him to drink more water. So when we're making, like, I help make his lunch, just if he's running out the door, and I'm always like throwing in the water bottles, just, whatever's convenient. You got to make some compromises, right? So if that's the way he's going to get his water, that's because he doesn't have access to water fountains or anything while he's on the go. And I drink my in a teacup. I don't drink tea. So I just like, they know that mine's the pretty fancy cup and it just makes it more special.
So awesome. I love that. And I mean, we talk about tea, and I know for both of us, our mom loves hot water, not even
It's
tea.
still boiling.
Yeah.
No, it has to still be boiling. It has to be pouring into the cup.
It's so true. And I can't do that. I don't like, I like tea. I do like warm beverages. Meaghan, you have a completely different experience.
I can't handle hot temperatures. So it took years to figure this out. So I like it warm, and I'm getting better at it. I know the health benefits of tea. So, I mean, especially when I'm not feeling well or certain times of the month, I'll make myself tea because I know that herbal teas can have great benefits. But yeah, my mouth just doesn't like the temperature of anything physically hot, not spicy, but just the temperature of hot. But I do, so I just drink warm, I guess.
I know when we were younger, the trick ended up being to warm your food first, or serve your food first, so that it could come down to temperature. And same thing, I prefer my water to be cool but not cold. That being said, I do enjoy a good ice cream or an ice cream, and so I'm all. It's not that I don't like cold temperatures per se. But how else do you flavor your water? You said that your water's your go-to. You occasionally have teas, or anything else that you enjoy to sort of add into that flavor profile.
Yeah, I really like hibiscus. And then, like I said, I am a big into herbs and foraging even. So we go out in our yard and we'll add things. But raspberry is great for the uterus. So that's just a fantastic raspberry leaf we use a lot. And then when the boys are sick, we use either mint or plantain leaves. Then that actually helps the body. And then I like berries and cucumber and things like that. I mean, I make a lot of kombucha as well. So I have a really cool water bottle that you can add stuff to it, and then it just flavors the water as you go. And you got me this amazing coffee. It's for iced coffee, but since I don't drink coffee, I put herbal tea bags and berries and cucumbers and flavor my water. And then I've got it always sitting in the fridge. So then if I feel like having something different and my kids can have something, again, it's just, you just pour it and it's already there.
That was the cold brew, because you don't drink coffee. But I had found this cold brew, and I thought, oh, but I know you like the benefits of herbal teas, but not actually drinking the tea itself. So that's why I had thought that would be something kind of fun for you and the boys to experiment with.
Oh, we do. We try it all sorts of different flavors. And we've chamomile. I don't love it as much. I don't know what the flavor, something up with that. But I also like lemon, and I know you have a lot to say about lemons as well. So we just try to mix it up, whatever the season is or whatever I have in the house, just to add some more fun and get them off juice as much as I can.
That's a really interesting one. So one of my good friends, she actually was finding chamomile was one that she loved, really loved. And we were talking about some symptoms that she was experiencing, she was really uncomfortable with. And I found out she's actually allergic to ragweed, and they're in the same family. And she gave up the chamomile tea, and suddenly her allergy symptoms just really dropped down, and she had not made that connection at all. And yet every evening she was drinking chamomile tea, and every morning she was waking up feeling just awful because she was so stuffy. And so these flavors and additions, there, some of them are a wonderful benefit, and some of them may cause a bit of a response in the body, and they're neither good nor bad. It's just how we interact with different things individually. One of the things that I really enjoy is nettle tea. So I'll do a nettle infusion, leave it for quite a long time, maybe overnight. That one's great. Also for the kidneys. You mentioned hibiscus. I love hibiscus tea, especially when it's been chilled afterwards. And then I mix mine with a little bit of unsweetened and plain cranberry juice. And that is just delicious. That was actually a recipe that I got from one of my favorite cookbook authors, Julie Daniluk, who you can find in episode 2. She was the reason why I started this whole podcast in the first place. And some of her herbal teas are just delicious.
Yeah, you're flavoring your water, you're getting your hydration, and whatever benefits that herb or fruit or whatever it is has to offer as well. So it's like a win all around.
It is, and it's interesting because the whole idea of flavor, sometimes it's more of a texture for the mouth and enjoying a flavor. And that one I find is so interesting. One of our nieces, back when we could get together for family barbecues, we always serve like a big cooler of water, and then in it we'll put sliced cucumber and blueberry. It's one of my favorite profiles, and she would just love it. Like that water would be gone, and she used to look forward to coming over for that. And the other one that I find is, I used to live in a town nearby, and I actually, for a period of time, I just couldn't drink the water. Literally, I thought it just tasted absolutely vile. And people would talk about, oh, water, it's so good for you. And I was like, I just can't. There's some municipal waters where it's absolutely healthy and it's safe for you, but it just has this unusual taste from the minerals and where it's being drawn from, in terms of the community source. And so it is absolutely viable that sometimes water just doesn't taste good. And I remember when I first started going to the gym, that could go to, there was this spring water, and I remember like almost wanting to finish my water bottle while I was there so I could fill back up again, because this water was so delicious. And again, I enjoy my water at home. I didn't think anything of it, but oh my gosh, this water was so good. And so you don't really realize that water can have different flavor profiles.
Yeah, we've noticed a huge difference. Like I said, we can't drink we can't drink water. So we get ours from like the actual water store in those big containers. And then we've gone to family members, or the kids have gone to activities and filled up water bottles, and they notice right away. They're like, oh, what is this? And sometimes it just tastes like pure chlorine, depending on where we've been. And then it affects their water bottles. And of course, then they don't want to use the water bottle again. So yeah, so if you don't love the water at your house, go to another city and just try theirs. or try getting like a water cooler and test that out, see if you notice the difference.
And you laugh, but it's a true thing, right? It's an absolutely true thing. And water is one of those things that we don't really realize. We talk about stress and we talk about our immune system and our hormones, and these are all so important factors to being healthy. But our mood, our digestion, our basic functions of swallowing, our digestive enzymes, even something like, it all passing back through whether it's through bowel movements or through urination, all of that requires water. And it's something that we really don't think about. When we first started this series, we're really focusing on restoring focus and ultimately how to manage being in back-to-back meetings. And that relationship between staying focused and being hydrated is just so important. It's so important.
It's huge. And I know for myself, like I'm on back-to-back Zoom calls, whether it's with clients or podcast interviews or whatever it is, I avoid drinking so that I don't have to stop and go to the bathroom. And I know that it's wrong, but it's, you know, there's no time for that these days. Like, we're expected to be in a meeting on time. And so I don't want to have to stop or leave or have to go to the bathroom. Sometimes even just going for hikes. And I know I should bring water on a hike, but if I'm going to be out in the forest, I gotta go. I actually deprive my body of what I need. And so I'm sure I'm more focused during the meetings on having to go to the bathroom or not, or being thirsty, that I'm totally distracted just by my body, whether intentional or not. There's like, just in the back of my mind, something's not right with my body the whole time.
I have had that conversation with so many of my colleagues who will say, you know, I'm thirsty. I haven't had hardly anything to drink today because I'm in back-to-back meetings, and I don't have time to go to the bathroom. And, you know, I remember at one point when I first joined the organization I work for, and just pausing and, you know, having seen my supervisor's calendar and thinking, whoa, and started off our meetings, you know, early on when I first started there. I was like, I've been a manager and I see your calendar. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Like, do you want to just call me back? And I remember my manager like, what is this conversation we're having? And then saying, that'd be really great. I'll call you right back. And it was because it's a real and legitimate strategy to try and stay engaged and productive in the workplace. But at the same time, when you have to go, there's an agitation that the body has, especially if it's a bowel movement. And there's a sense of agitation in the body, just literally has to go to the bathroom. And in that moment, I find, you know, it's happened to me as well. I can't hear anything that's going on. No recollection whatsoever of that meeting. All I can focus on is, you know, whether or not I'm doing a bit of a wiggle, trying to stay still on camera, and I just gotta go.
I think so many people feel that way, but nobody's willing to bring it up. And then, like you said, when you do, so many people, like, I bet everyone else in the meeting's like, yes, can we just start the meeting in 5 minutes? We need a break in between. And I'm finding it really different in this COVID world that we're living in, because a lot of the times it's all virtual. And so when we used to be able to go to meetings, you'd go down the hall to the meeting room, the bathrooms were right there. So you could go slip in and out. But now you're expected to show up at a certain time, on time, and do all these meetings. I don't know. We forget to build in that pause break in between times.
And there was a pause break because you physically had to get to your next meeting. Even if it was in the next room, you know, two or three rooms down the hall, you had to physically get to your next meeting. So everyone knew there was almost like an unspoken protocol that you would have to leave a few minutes early. You couldn't go right to the minute because you knew you'd be late to your next meeting. And yet now that's exactly what we're doing. We schedule, well, most calendar systems are on the 30 and 60 minute. And so I know for some of my colleagues, I've said, listen, I'm going to book us in maybe a 25-minute meeting or a 45-minute meeting or even a 6-minute meeting, because that's all the time that I need. And in the meantime, I'm going to, you know, give us back 5 minutes, 10 minutes to jot down those few notes of things that we are supposed to remember and literally rebalance our fluids.
Yeah, it's so important to put that back as a priority and speak about it, just like you're doing. Like, you're bringing up topics that we all know are important, but nobody's talking about it. So I really appreciate that you're calling us out on this and saying, like, have a drink, go to the bathroom. We do this all the time with kids, and when they're little, and, you know, before you get in the car, go do it. We need to be able to remember this for ourselves. And as a reminder for anyone who has kids doing like all their online learning, build that into their day too. You're setting them up for healthy habits as they get older too.
And being able to talk about it. I mean, one of the things I know people find Sometimes jarring and alarming is that I'm very comfortable to talk about bodily fluids. Most people are like, whoa, okay. And so, yeah, we just met. Hi, how are you doing? Do you have to go to the bathroom? So it's not quite like that, but it is something that you're right. It's almost taboo and people don't want to talk about it. And they will literally suffer in silence rather than speak up and say, I need a quick bio break. And how many other people on the other side of the line would welcome, just 2 minutes, 3 minutes out of a full hour to just quickly run. And one of the things that can make it, I'll say, more challenging is that caffeine is a stimulant to the nervous system. Yeah, I see you nodding and agreeing. And, obviously reaches your brain. And the very first effect is that it's noticeable, you feel alert. And you may feel more awake or less tired, and that's because those receptors in your brain are actually being suppressed. So the sensation of tired is what's minimized. So it's not so much that you're feeling more awake, but you actually just feel less tired. And Meaghan, your spouse and mine are avid coffee drinkers, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But you talked about warm beverages for you, or hot beverages, and so you don't drink coffee, right? But your spouse does?
Yes, I know how to make it, but I don't drink it.
I love the smell of it.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm getting
you're not a coffee drinker at all. But your boys learned how to make it too. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's like the first thing they can do when they're little. They love it. They like counting the scoops and filling up the water to the certain line. So they all know how to make coffee for daddy. And we know he goes through a lot of it. And like you said, he works crazy hours and he just wants to stay awake and get through the day, which is why I'm always packing everything else except that into his lunch to send off with him.
And it's so interesting because, when I talk to, I have given a talk a number of times, and I'll always ask, like, how many of you are on your second cup already? And it's first thing in the morning, and like hands are going up, and some people are like, yeah, I'm already on number 3. It's like, okay. And, there are, I'll just preface by saying I have absolutely, not recommending to give up coffee. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think one of the other things that comes about is that we're so accustomed to drinking it and in quantity that we sometimes don't realize that coffee, similar to the herbal teas we were talking about before, that have some therapeutic and beneficial effects to the body or can cause a response in the body. So for example, chamomile was an example that we were talking about that some people can be affected by. But caffeine's another one. And too much caffeine, especially in the pot a day, that can give headaches. It can increase the amount of acid in your stomach, so it can actually cause some stomach upset or heartburn. It increases blood pressure, and you can also maybe have a feeling of an irregular heartbeat. In my case, it actually activates my hypothalamus. So I actually have a bit of trouble regulating my body temperature when I have coffee in particular, and it activates that sweating of my hands quite strongly. Actually, all caffeine does. I find caffeine is something that we know that the body doesn't store it. It's processed right away, and it goes through your liver, and it takes some resources. So, coffee comes at a bit of a cost to actually process, and then we exits through the urine. That's the pathway back out of the body. And so shortly after you've had that coffee, and even for people who are, dehydrating themselves for the day, but leaning into coffee, you probably have to go to the bathroom shortly thereafter. And, whether it's a cola drink or a caffeinated tea or a coffee, any form of caffeine will cause you to have to go to the bathroom. And, if I'll share the story, because again, very open about this, but that was one of the reasons why I knew that coffee wasn't the right thing for me. It took a really long time for me to clue in. I knew that my hands had been getting worse. I really didn't know why. I had a lot of stress at the time. And I didn't really realize that coffee was an irritant, except that I constantly had to go to the bathroom. And it got to the point where, whether I would sneeze or like really have like a good belly laugh, and I was afraid to, because not only was that sensation of having to go there, but there was almost the sneeze pee, right? Like that risk of leaking in that moment. And that's unbelievably embarrassing when you are in a work setting. And So I finally clued in that caffeine was, and specifically coffee, was irritating the lining of my bladder and causing inflammation in my bladder. And again, not saying to come off coffee, it's not for everyone, but just being aware that caffeine can have an effect on you. Have you ever had any drinks or any types of beverages that have had anything happen like that to you?
I can't do dairy.
Oh,
I
interesting.
Yeah. So growing up, you know this, I was chronically itchy. Like, it was funny. I was always like itching my stomach, and I had chronic canker sores. And we didn't know what it was. My mom suspected maybe apple juice was the problem because it's acidic. Maybe that was it. Um, and I don't think we were big water drinkers as kids at all. It was always juice. So we
Yeah,
couldn't figure out what
and
it
milk,
was that was
a lot of
bothering
milk.
me. Yeah, and so it wasn't until I was trying to solve some digestive issues for my boys that I went off dairy at the same time to help one of them because I was nursing at the time, and it all just disappeared. But I didn't think about it until I had like some ice cream, and it all came flooding back like worse than before. And I was like, that was dairy. Like maybe there's a connection here. And I always hated milk because it made me thirsty. And I also find pop makes me thirsty too. So I just don't see the point of it. I drink it because I enjoy it, but if I'm going to the effort of having a drink, I want it to quench my thirst. If it's going to make me feel more thirsty, then I just, my body knows, okay, that's not for you. I guess maybe I'm too practical, but I recognize I'm very sensitive to how my body reacts to things. So if I'm going to drink, it's got to quench my thirst. Otherwise, I don't see the point of it.
Oh, that's absolutely valid. And again, not saying that these extra cups of coffee or drinking milk or pop, it's not the question. It's not even a recommendation to let it go. It's
Yeah.
just asking yourself, if you're finding you're leaning into it more, like if you're craving it, just maybe ask the question, why?
Yeah.
And what are the effects in the body? Like, is there an effect? The other one, you talked about lemon earlier. Lemon's another great one. I love lemon honey tea. It's delicious, especially the lemon ginger. There's a couple brands that make a
Oh,
really
yeah. I
nice.
love that.
Oh, I know, it's so good. It smells so lovely, especially with some fresh honey. And the I remember having a conversation with our dentist and wanted to know, well, what happens? And because it's delicious. And I know some people who will put a slice of lemon in their water and then just keep refilling the water or add more lemon throughout the day. And the flavor is absolutely delicious. And so the question that I asked him is, are there any negative impacts of drinking lemon juice? And, he's been my dentist for, well, he was my dentist for 25 years. He just retired in December. It was kind of sad, actually, and mostly because I felt old. But in that moment, he said, drink a mug of warm water with lemon in the morning. It's a great boost to vitamin C. There's anti-inflammatory properties. Absolutely recommend it. And then he said, follow that with a glass of plain warm water and swish, and then hold off on brushing your teeth for at least 10 minutes. But drinking water with a slice of lemon throughout the day is not necessarily a good idea. And so he got into a great conversation with me about how the tooth structure works, why that type of acidic, ultimately this is still acidic acid, and why that can lead to sensitivity or pain, pardon me, in the mouth, especially around the tooth. And so I actually wrote an article about it. And so I'll post that up in the show notes, because I think it was just, again, not good or bad necessarily, but just being aware of the fact that some of the things that we drink on a regular basis do have an impact on us. And it's not a you should or should not do that, because there's no right answer. And you talked about compromise earlier. It's incredibly important. And joy, enjoying the sensation and enjoying the mouth feel and the taste. These are all really important considerations, but just being aware, I think, is really important.
Well, once you're aware of something, then it just gets you to ponder and think outside of what you've always done or what's outside of what everyone else is doing. And you realize, well, everyone else is doing it, but that isn't working for my particular body. And I think that's what you're also saying with, it's not that we're giving you a to-do list or a good and bad list, because every body reacts differently. So you might be totally fine with it. I might not, but just being aware of it gets you thinking about, it might set you off and say, hey, I'm fine with this food that they mentioned, but I just realized that something else I've been eating has been bothering me. And just being aware of how your body reacts to things.
And even then, it's not even necessarily an allergy. It could just be in that moment, the resources that take to process it is just more than what you have available, right?
Yeah.
Caffeine being a great example of that. Meaghan, I'm so glad you joined me today. This was really fun.
I love it. I love chatting.
I love chatting with you. So this is going to continue. We're so appreciative of you coming to listen to us today. And again, I'll have show notes laid out, and I'll have different links to things that we talked about there, some of the tips and recommendations. And we'd love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you're looking for more information, if you have a suggestion for an upcoming show, and more importantly, if there's something specific that you want to address, you think maybe we could answer a question for you. Love to hear those as well. You can find all of that at morethangoodfood.ca. Again, that website is morethangoodfood.ca. Meaghan, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to the next episode.
As do I. And until next time, remember that living a healthy life is about more than good food.